Hello there, it's 7 p.m. and it's time for Fitwins Running Show Live. So thank you for joining us on this Wednesday evening, on this very bitter cold night. It's cold in most parts of the world. I don't know about Australia, but if you're in the UK, if you're in Europe, it's extremely cold. We've had temperatures of -6 today. I've been running out this morning. I just want to say well done to everybody who's doing our challenge this month. This February, you're doing absolutely fantastic. It's great seeing the progress people are making, despite the adverse conditions, despite the bitter cold and the snow that we've been having. We've had 125 people start their challenge this month. They've done absolutely fantastic. So Fitwins is all about getting people motivated, and it's your chance to get fit and be a winner. Just like Donna Riley, who won a coffee machine recently in our free competition in our community. If you've not joined our community, you can join our community for free on Facebook. So we're in for a special treat this evening. We're joined by world champion, Olympian, Team GB representative multiple times, Alison Dixon. So we're joined by a world champion ultra runner. So we've got a lot of questions to ask Alison, and she's going to be quick fire ready for those questions, I'm sure. Well done to everybody who completed our January challenge, and we've got a prize to give away. So we have, from our partners at CEP, we have some compression socks. I wear these for my long runs. I've been wearing them in the morning as well. I've been getting away with shorts and these compression socks. They really help me with my recovery, and they help with the longer runs as well. So we've got CEP running socks. These are mine, by the way. You'll not get these. You'll get some brand new CEP gear, a running hat, and these super gloves. I've worn different kinds of gloves in winter. These are the best I've worn I've running. I don't need to double layer in terms of gloves. I just wear one pair of them, and it's great. It even helps me make snowballs and throw them at people. But I'm too busy running, to be honest. So we have to choose a winner from our January challenge. So we're going to rely on Google to choose a random number. If you're on a community group, you've been given a random number. She speaks at me on. And we've got 135 numbers to choose from. So one person is going to win the CEP gear tonight. So good luck, fingers crossed. This is for everyone who completed our January challenge, which involved completing a minimum of 25 miles during the month. So hopefully this will work. Hey Google, choose a random number between 1 and 135.
Here's a random number, 51.
So the winner is 51 in our community group. That is D. Griffin. So we will track down D. Griffin, who has won the CEP gear. Well done to everybody who completed the challenge. For those of you who are doing our February challenge, which is happening now, it's not too late to enter, by the way. If you want to download the app and sign up, you can sign up as a bronze entry. It's £3.50 for a bronze entry, and you can enter a draw to win a £100 running shop voucher. Treat yourself to some trainers, some running kit, and if you want to sign up for gold, you get a gold medal. The theme this month is the St. Valentine's Challenge. It starts in Verona, and if you manage to get 200 miles, if you manage to get that far, go even further, it takes you through Venice and Padua, or Padova, the English version. So we're going to be joined by Alison Dixon. If you've got any questions, you can post them, and we'll try to answer your questions. We've got quite a few that we got sent in on our community group. We're quite active on Facebook, Instagram. We also reply support at Fitwins if you want to send us an email or you need any help. You know, we're here. That's what we're here for. We're here to help you get motivated, get fit. Hopefully, you enjoy doing our challenges. So we're going to bring Ali in, okay, with no further introduction, really. Her performances are quite remarkable. She's very, very understated as an athlete. She's one of the most consistent performers I've seen, to be honest, looking at her record. So we're going to bring Ali in and say hello. So let's welcome Ali.
Hi.
Hi, Ali. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Bit cold up north, but cold.
Cold up north. So you're up north. Is it? I'm going to say this right. Is it Sunderland or Chesterfield Street?
Sunderland.
It's Sunderland. Yeah, sorry for that. Because I noticed you ran for Sunderland Strollers. So you're a club athlete as well as being an international athlete.
Yeah.
And one thing that really stands out for me, having looked at your performances, is you're just so consistent. You give your all in every single race. That's something that I really admire. You can get some athletes that are just a flash in the pan. They've got one or two good performances. That's probably me being one with 1:2:23 marathon. But you've been so consistent throughout your career. And do you want to tell us about how you actually got into running and what made you start this remarkable journey that you've had?
Yeah, literally from the day I was born, I've been immersed in running because my dad was a marathon runner. So spent my childhood being dragged around watching him run marathons, which when you're just a little kid, it's not the most entertaining. You know, you see him run past for like 100 meters and then
Yeah,
like 2 hours 20, 2 hours 30 later, they come back and you see him do another 100 meters.
that's a good time. 2:30. Yeah, you've got good genes.
My dad did 2:21 in his best.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But
no
yeah,
doubt.
kind of, I would do the fun runs just to keep us entertained and something to do while he was doing his race. And then, yeah, I went along to the local club when I joined. I went to senior school, got a new friend who'd been to a different primary school. And she said that she was a member of the running club and they were going to Flamingo Land, which anybody who's not from up here, it's a theme park in North Yorkshire. So yeah, I went home, said to my dad, I want to join the Harriers. And I pretty much only joined so I could go on this trip to Flamingo Land. And
Wow. Yeah.
here I am, 31 years later, still out pounding the streets. And
Good.
yeah, it's been a pretty good roller coaster ride ever since, really.
Roller coaster fits in with
Yeah.
Flamingo Land. I'm sure, no pun intended.
Yeah.
So we've got Flamingo Land to thank for the fact that obviously you went on to achieve great things. You ran in the last Olympics in Rio in 2016. I'm sure that was a remarkable experience running the marathon in those conditions, and we're going to touch on that later.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you view your greatest performance because you've got so many excellent performances, particularly in marathon. And what stands out for me is running in Brasov, Romania, being the world champion over 50k. What performance in your career so far? It's not finished, but what performance really stands out for you as pinnacle in your career?
Yeah, obviously Olympic Games, you know,
Yeah,
it's the biggest stage of, you know, world sport, not just athletics, but any world sport. I think there's probably only the Football World Cup that's kind of held in any sort of similar regard. And that's just because football is all simply the best. But, you know,
yeah,
if you talk to any young kid that's into sport, you know, they'll probably say that one day they want to run at the Olympics.
yeah.
But in terms of Britain, there's only, I think it's 5,500 people ever competed in Olympic Games across summer and winter. So, you know, it's a very, very limited, very, very elite club to be in. And it's something that, you know, you do it once and it can never be taken away from you. You know, you can break a world record, somebody else can come out and break it again the week after. You can win a world championship. The next world championship's what somebody's probably going to take it off you. But once you're an Olympian, you're always an Olympian. And yeah, that was a very special one. But in terms of actual out and out performance, I think possibly my 10K is my best.
Really?
I ran 32:17 on the roads.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, at the time I think it put us like 11th fastest ever in Britain for the females. I knocked Zola Budd down a place on the all-time list.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so
you do it in shoes, not bare feet. Yeah.
No, and there were pre-carbon shoes as well.
Yeah, I mean that's changed running. I mean that's a debate from the time, the fact of carbon fibre shoes and performances, but that is a rapidly fast 10k time. Obviously, you've structured your training to be very versatile, then from 10k all the way to an ultra and running the 50k. I sometimes try and learn, put myself in this perspective of a runner that's run a 50k. I've never done it. So if we could just touch on your run in Romania, how you felt in the build up towards the race. Did you think you could win? Did you feel comfortable? Just how did that race actually feel, the 50k, when you became world champion?
Yeah, I knew I was in really good shape because I do a lot of my training over in Fontlemore in the Pyrenees in France.
Altitude, yeah.
Yeah, and I've got a 10-mile tempo route that I use, and it's normally about 2 weeks before the marathon. I'll do that 10-mile tempo,
Great minds
and
think alike. Yeah, that's what I do.
yeah, and I've got like all the data from 2 weeks before I
Mm.
ran my PB and everything. And I was running this 10-mile tempo and I was kind of looking at the split. I was like, that's pretty close to my fastest ever. And I
Yeah,
didn't dare look it up just to see how close it was. But I came in from it and I says, I'm not doing the 50K. And my partner kind of looked at us. He was like, you've just run one of your fastest ever tempos.
yeah.
Why aren't you doing the 50K? I was like, because I'm in really good shape. If I go and do Berlin Marathon, I could potentially run a PB over the marathon and put down another Olympic qualifier for what should
Wow.
have been Tokyo last year. And he was like, don't get ahead of yourself. Go and do the 50K. If that goes well, then we can have like a look, maybe it's Valencia or something in the December.
Yeah.
So yeah, I stuck with the 50K, and yeah, kind of when I looked back on those stats, I was only 2 seconds slower over 10 mile. So, I was in really good shape. And my aims, I had two aims for the 50K. My first one was to break the British record, which was 3 hours 16. And my
Yeah.
second one was to win. So that's what I went in for with the aims of, and because I'd never done a ultra before, I was kind of pretty much under the radar. Nobody had mentioned us in any of the
Yeah,
previews or
form
anything like
wise,
that.
yeah, you're not going to be
Yeah.
noticed.
So
And
even though I was the fastest marathon runner in the field and it's only an extra 5 mile, I kind of like just completely overlooked, and I quite like that because then there was no pressure.
nice feeling, yeah.
Yeah.
To relax. I
So
think in the ultra world, um, it's people underestimate the potential of somebody who's run a decent
yeah.
marathon. So
Well, even
they
when I
seem
put
to
my
think they
name
fall
forward
apart.
for the team, yeah, like the
Yeah,
team manager or one of the selectors emailed us back and said, yeah, we'll consider you, but just to let you know, not all good marathon runners make good ultra runners. I was
yeah,
like, okay, there's a vote of confidence for you.
yeah. I've
So,
been there myself
yeah,
when I wanted to do trail championships over 50K, and 9 out of 10 people were saying it'd be a terrible mistake. And
yeah,
no, 5 miles it's further, but I
yeah,
knew that pace wise, I could be quite competitive.
yeah.
But your transition, yeah, I mean, you didn't just win. You won. I'm not saying you won at the canter, but you won quite by some distance.
It was 2 minutes, and I
Yeah,
took 80 seconds off the world record.
yeah,
So yeah, and like my big like worry in the race, I trained up to 30 mile, but it was only at like 6:30 pace. I was doing my 30 milers,
yeah.
and here I am
Relax.
running, and I got to the 26.2 and kind of had a bit of a mental wobble. Kind of, I've never raced beyond this.
Yeah, you
It's still a
let
long way. I kept on saying to myself, it's only less than 5 mile more, but that's still, half an hour of running. It's still a long way.
yeah,
So I was running at a level where I knew I wasn't flat out. I was well within myself. And to be able to judge that, the men were running at the same time and it was a looped course. So as they were coming down and I was going up, I was shouting over them. I was like, go on, Paul, you're looking really good. You're looking really
yeah.
strong. And like, we
So you were
finished and they were all
comfortable.
like, how the hell could you talk so much? They were like,
Yeah, yeah, you were
oh.
comfortable. Yeah,
I was like, well, it was my way of judging that I was comfortable. And, my last 5K split was my fastest of the race. And I finished with a 5:37, I think it was last mile. So I still had quite a lot left. It's kind of like, in a way, I look back and think I probably could have took more off that world record and put it out of reach a bit more. But at the end of the day, I broke the world record. It doesn't matter whether it was by a second, a minute, an hour. I'm
yeah.
now the world record holder. So yeah, it
And
was
you've still got that. Yeah, you've still got the
yeah,
record.
yeah,
Um, and you made the right decision, I think so, doing that event rather than Berlin or the marathon, because,
yeah.
like you mentioned, people can't take things away from you if you've been
No,
Olympian, but people can't take the fact that you're a world champion.
yeah, they'll look back in the record books 50 years time and they'll see, 2019 Ali Dixon, and it would be nice to think I still have the world record then, but even if I don't, on the progression list, my name's still in there.
It's not going to be, if it is beaten, it's still going to be competitive. I think, we're not going to evolve that much in 50 years. Cam and Five Shoes might change it. You may have to come back out and have a go at it.
No, I'm retired now.
Maybe try that. Yeah, you've achieved a great deal. But I suppose for you now, then you say you've retired, but there must be some Masters element of running Masters races in your mind, because
it's just the ultra that I've retired from. I always said I would do one ultra, and I did it, and I ticked all the boxes, so I don't have to go back and do it again now. Whereas if I'd came second or just missed the record or something, I might have went back and tried again. But
you've got to keep going.
I did a smash and grab, got everything, and
you've ticked basically all the boxes. And you've also performed at the Commonwealth Games as well. So you've run for England, you've run for Britain, you've become a world champion.
I've done pretty much all there is to do in the sport. So it's now time just to do stuff like I love all aspects of it. Well, probably don't love cross country quite as much, but I love running and I love racing. So,
but you also give a lot back, because you did some charity. You support a local charity.
Yeah, I'm an ambassador for a local charity, and a week after the 50k, I was running the Great North Run dressed as Wonder Woman, setting another world record. And I raised about £5,000 for the hospice.
We sponsored you.
And
fantastic what you did.
And just that was a really good day. I really enjoyed that, and it was that's the side of running that I love so much. Just being in amongst everybody else, and running in with the masses. It's completely different to running in with the elite, and just talking to people and helping people improve with my coaching that I'm doing now. And I just love the kind of whole community of running.
So you're doing some coaching now, and it's great that you're giving something back, because obviously people can gain such a lot from you. So obviously if you're watching this video, we'll keep the video on. If you want to get in touch with Ali, if you want some guidance from Ali, to coach all distances with her experience from running 10k, 5k onwards, all the way up to ultras, obviously you'll not get a better insight than from Ali. So if you want to contact Fitwins, Sport Fitwins, we can put you in touch with Ali if you want a personalised training plan. So we've had quite a few questions from people in our community. And our community is for people who want to challenge themselves, want to be better next month than the month before. They're on a journey of self-improvement. So we're a community for people who have just finished Couch 5k. We've also got some elite athletes as well, some people running 500 miles a month. So we've got quite a broad spectrum of users. So some of the questions are actually quite general. Some of them are very specific. One guy, he's wanting to do an ultra, and he's run marathons. He said, did you have to change your prep and training when you trained for the 50k compared to what you'd done before for the marathon? Was there a big transition? Did you change your training too much?
It's very, very similar. I was a high mileage runner for the marathon anyway. I would do, my long run would be 26 mile, building up for a marathon. And, I'd run 120, 125 mile a week. So there wasn't really much scope to kind of take that any further.
You're at the end of it.
So all what I did, I kept the same, like I said, the 10 mile tempo and all that kind of stuff, kept majority of that the same. And then I just added a few miles onto my long run, because I wanted to know that I could run 30, 31 miles. I didn't want to leave it to race day to go into the complete unknown. So I did a 30 mile run, a 20 mile run, and I think it was like 4 26 mile runs as my long runs, whereas normally, like I say, for the marathon, I'd go 126 and then a couple of 25s, 24s. So, that was the only thing I changed.
You were going to win that race. If I knew you'd done that, definitely. You were certainly going to win that race with that type of prep, with the endurance. So, I think it was Simon Sachs who asked that question. He now knows what he needs to do. Another thing is, and I found this myself. You mentioned that your runs were about 6:30 pace, so they weren't I mean, a lot of people get hooked up on thinking that they have to run at race pace
Yeah,
on for a marathon. It's so wrong,
yeah,
and I I annoyed some people when I told people that I could run at a 5:30 pace, 5:27 for a marathon at my best, but my long runs were at 6:30, 6:40, and they
yeah,
couldn't work it out.
yeah.
But
I think you get kind of
mm,
one extreme is the other. You get
yeah,
one lot where they just run too slow, and then you're like, well, you're now teaching your body just to plod. Or you
mm,
get one lot where, like you say, they'll be doing their long runs and they'll be saying like on Strava some easy long run. You're like, no, that's marathon pace.
yeah.
You're like
On the Strava, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're like
it's
a
generally ego.
3 hour marathon runner and you're running your long runs at like 7:05 pace. You're like, that's not easy.
Yeah,
And yeah, then like I say, you get the other end. I see a lot of. I had a big argument with one of the local guys, and he
yeah.
told me that I was running my long runs too fast, and I was like, right. And he was like, you should be doing at least like 8.5 minute mile, and I was like, why would I do that when I want to try and run sub 2:30 for a marathon, which is
I
like
think
5:40 pace? I'm not going to go out and do because my long run
yeah,
is one of my key sessions of the week.
yeah, it's a
So I'm
workout.
not going to do that at like 8 minute miling. It's like that's teaching my body to run a minute and a half slower, in fact more. And it's
I
like,
think yeah, the
mm,
hardest thing for runners is to change how they train
yeah,
because many people train in isolation. They have their own methods. They might train in a club, but when they see somebody doing something that works for them
yeah,
and it challenges their norms or their perceptions, you're challenging them. It can get annoying.
yeah,
I've seen that myself. So they don't want to listen.
no,
They don't want to change, but for the sake of just trying something new for a month or a couple of months
yeah,
and seeing if it works, it might not work.
yeah,
It's very difficult for some runners to change something that they do habitually every day as
yeah,
regimen. For instance, some runners that may aim for a sub 3 hour marathon, they'll ask for advice about what to do, and I may suggest do a long run at about 8 minute miling. Your race pace is 6:50, 6:57, 6:52. But you just need a few longer runs at slow pace just to build up your aerobic capacity. And
yeah.
I've gone out at like 6:20 pace for
Mm.
18 miles,
Yeah.
and it was
I
easy.
think in like your base training, it's
Mm,
okay to go a little bit slower, but when you're building up for a marathon, I think your long run has to be, like I said, one of your key sessions. That is, I know a lot of people say like, oh, a long, easy run, but you've got to look at it as a hard day. You've
yeah,
got to give plenty of recovery after. Don't expect to go out and do a session or anything the next day. And, I think kind of between if you're doing it as a proper marathon focused long run, 30 seconds a mile slower than your race pace. So it's a steady rather than easy,
that's
you
good.
know, between that and about a minute slower. And then I think about a minute is kind of a good, you should still be able to have a conversation if you're out running with one of
Yeah,
your pals or something, but it's teaching your body, 20, 22, 23 miles at a fairly decent pace. So you're getting used to that glycogen depletion and everything. And it's
yeah,
not just plodding around. Because if you plod a 20-mile run, you could be on your feet for extra half hour,
yeah,
you
and
know.
it's more
And then
damages
it's
on
complete
your muscles, isn't it?
different kind of training system that you've got. You're going from that kind of glycogen depletion into pure fat burning because your heart rate's hardly rising, and all what you're doing is depleting your system rather than encouraging your aerobic system.
Yeah, you're not recovering. Yeah,
No.
it's
My
quite
biggest
difficult.
bugbear is when you see like 10-mile recovery run and you're like, seriously, unless you're Jim Walmsley who races like 100-mile, 10-mile is not recovery.
No, it's not. My recovery is 5 miles. I won't go
Yeah.
over. That's
Like
if I've done
six
a
six
hard
miles, 45 minutes.
yeah. Sometimes I'll do 8 minute mile the day after a really
Yeah.
hard long run. If I've run hard on a Sunday and Monday, that 5 miles on Monday feels harder than the Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's telling you something.
Yeah.
And you're right. Some people down at the running club will go track session Tuesday.
Yeah.
We're doing 2,400 meter reps
Yeah.
because we did a lot on Sunday. And like, what went wrong in my marathon prep?
Yeah.
I mean, we can laugh, but it's routine, it's a regimen. You think thoroughly. Another question we got from Diane Curdy. What do you eat before a long run? What do you tend to eat? I mean, I can generally get away with anything: porridge, toast, honey,
Yeah.
a banana. Something called banana, I make those as well. But what do you tend to eat before?
I've tried to keep it the same as what I'll have on race day. So it tends to be, your usual kind of porridge with a few different toppings on. Maybe it's a slice of toast as well if I'm going really long. And I'll also, if I'm doing like really long in a marathon specific block, I'll have somebody with us on the bike so that I can practice like my in-race fueling as well. So I'll be taking a carb drink every 5K, a few gels in the second half. And obviously, it's hard to carry that amount of fluid by yourself. So I normally have my dad on the bike with us, handing us the bottle every 5K, reminding us that he never took any drinks when he ran a marathon.
2:21, yeah, you can't really argue back, can you, to be honest?
Yeah. But he also wore Dunlop Green Flash, and I have no intentions of going into them either.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine that, the time that people ran. I mean, you go into an age of Ron Hill running 2:09 and basically, like worse than high tech Silver Shadow. I don't know what trends he wore, probably plimsolls, and it becomes quite unfathomable that people could run those times. Why do you think? Obviously, things are improving a little bit now in terms of marathon standards. We've got quite a few good male and female athletes hitting qualifying times. Why do you think standards have declined generally since those days when your dad was running?
I think there's a few different factors. Like for me, looking at like him and his mates and that, one of the large factors was they were all manual workers. My dad worked at the shipyards, so he'd run from Sunderland to Wallsend, do his shift at the shipyards, and then run back home. Or sometimes he'd run via Gateshead Stadium to do a track session. And, they were physically fit and strong. And, the kind of, they're lifting all sorts of machinery all day. So whereas we might now do 2 strength and conditioning sessions a week, they were literally doing, 10 hours of it every day. And I think they had that kind of resilience and strength to them from that.
It's kind of gone away,
Yeah. And now, most of us were sitting in the office all day with, our hamstrings and hip flexors shortening by the second. And, it's not really...
Where I work, I run home from work, and for me it's quite short, it's 5 miles. Yeah. The comments are, "You running home?
Yeah.
You're running in that?" I'm like, well, I'll be home in 30 minutes. It takes me 20 minutes to the car. That's mad. But I suppose in the 80s, or maybe a generation
it was commonplace,
they were like, I'll join you.
And like with him and his club, the year he ran 2:21, he was only the 6th fastest in the club. So he had 5 guys that were going faster than 2:21. I think the fastest that year was like 2:16. So he had a good group of people that are a little bit faster than him to train with, and those that are just, 2:22, 2:23, that also had a big group of those behind. Whereas now you go down to a club and you might have a 2:30 guy, but then nobody else to like a 3-hour guy or something.
Yeah.
At my club, you've got myself, and then the next fastest, and this is a lad, it's like 2:45. So I'm not too bad because I know that those 2:45 lads can still help me with my sessions because obviously that little bit stronger over the shorter stuff.
Yeah.
But when it's a lad, that wouldn't be a good matchup, a 2:30 runner and a 2:45 runner. You're not going to get the same training. And I think, they were a lot more kind of simplified in their training. So, they would never use terms like a progression run or a threshold run or even a tempo run. They're just called the club night. You'd go out and you'd have 20 guys, half killing each other over a 10-mile loop around Sunderland, finishing in like 51 minutes.
That for me, that sounds really like fun, but
and they just start off easy, and we'd call it a progression run now because they'd start off easy, chatting away, and then somebody would start like 10-stepping, so they'd start putting him down, and the pace would just naturally pick up without them even like realizing, and they'd finish at sub 5 minute mile. And
Wow.
you know, our guys can't do that now. You know, they'd need to be in a race environment to hit that. But yeah, I think there's kind of, you know, a lot of stuff. And then the big thing is we also don't have the numbers that we used to. We've got that bottom base of the pyramid, you know, 250,000 people doing parkrun every week when it was on, but we don't have that kind of very small kind of second layer of the pyramid. So like you say, we've got now a couple of guys right at the top doing 2.8s to 2.10s, but we don't really have that amount kind of, you know, the 220,
you then suddenly
225.
jump to 225 or people like me.
Or what you've got to do is look at like London results. In the past, you could run 220 and you'd be outside the top 200. Now you'd probably be in the top 50.
Yeah, another thing I noticed when I did London, and I'm not near that top end, and I'm well away, you know, I'm 10 minutes back, but you find yourself in isolation as well when you're in that 220 range or just outside. You're on your own, and there's not enough
because you've got like those fast ones at the front, then you've got this big gap, and then you've got like the fun runners sort of thing.
Yeah, you've got the championship runners that are aiming. You've got those that are aiming for 2:45. You've got a group going at the 2:30, and then you've got no man's land, which is the gap between the elite and where I mean, there was about 30, 40 runners, but over 26 miles, you tend to be strung out, and you find yourself in no man's land plenty of times. It's a good point you raised about the clubs, about these 10-mile sessions, what you do together, because getting runners together at the club to run that, they get quite worried. I'm not running with you. I'm just not going to give it a go. But I suppose you have a mindset I have where if I could train with somebody that's better than me, I mean, Kipchoge's off my league, but I'd relish it. I'd hang in as long as I could. And that was kind of like when I started the club, there were some runners that I really looked up to, and you'd get better every week at hanging with them. We used to do, like you say, it was a 10-mile standard thing. But these were vet runners in the 40s, and I was 23. And I could last 2 miles with them at first, but I gradually built up. But I don't think there's young people around that are doing that now, that want to give it a go. In numbers, there are some fantastic runners coming through, but they're not like what you said, the depth that we had years gone by. But that's talked about elite running. If we could talk about someone that's new to running, or somebody that's done the couch to 5K, what's your 3 best pieces of advice for somebody who's just started running? If you could give them 3 tips, what would be?
My overall biggest one is kind of to never lose the love and the enjoyment of it. So just always remember, kind of, you know, don't get fixated on constantly looking at your splits and, you know, letting a watch on your wrist kind of tell you whether it's a good run or a bad run. And just kind of aim for getting very, very good at being consistent. So, you know, you might start to do some speed sessions and do some races, and don't worry that every speed session isn't, you know, a PB speed session or anything like that. You're better off running consistent, you know, a 6-week consistent block of training rather than going, oh my God, that was an amazing session. I've never run so fast ever in my life, than having 4 weeks of kind of below average, kind of going, oh, I'm really tired. I'm getting nowhere near those times. You know, run kind of, you know, I'm just picking numbers off my head, but aim for 8-minute miling on all your sessions, rather than suddenly doing a 7:45, but then dropping back to 8:15 the next week. You know, it's kind of just getting, as I put it, kind of get great at being consistent rather than consistently great.
That's really good. Yeah, I've not heard that. Great.
Because it's so hard to be consistently great. You know, nobody can do that. If you're being consistently great, you're probably not even trying hard enough or something, or, you know, there's something else going on. So you've just got to get good at being consistent, you know, because you miss a week and you're not going to lose a lot of fitness, but it does set you back a little bit.
It does, yeah.
So if you can just chip away every week, do everything you can in your power to make sure you don't miss a week, then it's all going to build up,
Yeah, that's so true, and people lose sight of that. That if you're consistent, it's making the building blocks.
Yeah.
Every block's taking you further, even if it's not a great run. It's getting out there and doing it. That'll
Yeah,
make you
it's
better.
just
It adds
keeping
up.
in that habit and,
Yeah,
keeping in that routine. And I know just now, pardon me, weather's crap, and
yeah.
most people
It's
are
so
just,
yeah, it's crap.
they want to put the duvet over their head and stay in bed instead of
Yeah,
getting out there. But if you miss one day, it's then so much easier to miss the next day. 'Cause you're like, well, I didn't train yesterday, so what does it matter if I train today? I'll start back again on Monday. And then by the time Monday comes, you're totally out of that routine. And it's so much
yeah,
easier to go, oh, I'll start again next Monday. You've just got to
yeah,
keep on going, even if you just put your shoes on and go out for a mile, or do a half-hour walk instead of a run if you're really
yeah.
not feeling up to it.
A 1
Just
mile run is better than no run at all. Yeah, any
yeah,
any activity is better than not doing anything. And
yeah,
another thing is, if you stop and you slack off, then you get into the habit of doing it. It becomes
yeah,
easier.
yeah,
That becomes habit forming in itself. Being a
yeah,
quitter.
yeah.
So
It's
that's
like a lot of people will
yeah,
say, like in a race, your first race, it's quite like to DNF for your first time. It's quite hard. You'll have like lots of arguments with yourself, and
yeah,
but as soon as you've done that, you're like, well, actually, it wasn't too bad. The world didn't end. I still woke up the next morning and carried on. And then the next race, it becomes easier to do that again. And before you know it, you're stopping at the drop of a hat. So
yeah,
if you can try not to get into that kind of position where, obviously at times you do have to stop because you're injured or you're ill or whatever. But once you've done it, it's a lot easier. It's the same as breaking 3 hours for a marathon. You'll try
mm,
for years and years and years, and you'll get so close, 3:01, 3 hours and 30 seconds.
yeah.
Then all of a sudden you'll break it, and
Yeah,
every race since then, you just
2:51.
break it
Yeah,
without
bang.
trying. Yeah,
Yeah. It's like microcosms of the bigger picture. It's like a long run.
yeah,
It's like my first ever long run, and it sounds pathetic now, but it was like 10 miles with the running club.
yeah,
And it was me completing 10 miles, having only been able to last 5 miles and 6 miles. And I came from like a track background. I was a footballer before you're not allowed a team. I was at
yeah,
Newcastle United as an apprentice. So I suppose you're a Sunderland fan. But
yeah,
so I came from this football background, and I was good at short bursts. But when I started running, I was okay over 800 and 1500. But for me, I did 10 miles a week. But when I did that 10 miles, I could run 12 miles and 14 and 16, and then it just
yeah,
became so much easier. Whereas 10 miles for me now is, I can't do that, as a midweek run or most evenings. So you're right, it's being consistent, and it's keeping going, because you'll eventually get there, if you
yeah,
keep chipping away at things, and don't give up. And it's something that we say to people who do our challenges. So some people will do a challenge and say, "Oh, that was too tough," but I'm going to go again next month. I'm going to try and beat what I did the month before,
yeah,
and people, get motivated through that. So we've just got one final question, Ali.
yeah.
So how has COVID-19 impacted on your training, and how has it affected your plans? Which
Um,
has had a massive impact.
Yeah, training hasn't been affected to the same extent as a lot of kind of my friends in the sport. I'm very lucky that our local track, it's literally a standalone track. It has no kind of security around it. It's in desperate need of repair, but
It's a
I can
shame.
still get onto the track. Probably technically it's still, it's a lockdown sort of thing, but there's nothing to stopping you going on and using it. And it is actually getting really, really busy all the way through all the different lockdowns, because you've had not just like people running there, kind of kids riding bikes, PTs doing gym sessions and all sorts.
Yeah.
So it's become quite a community hub.
More than
But
before, yeah, it's quite nice.
yeah, yeah. And the only thing that's really impacted is that I can't go to the gym and lift the way I did.
Yeah,
In the first lockdown, I was lucky the gym loaned us an Olympic bar and some weights, so I could do that in the backyard. But obviously, this weather, you can't do that. So yeah, I'm kind of improvising my gym sessions. I still meet up over Zoom with my gym coach to make sure that I do, because it's probably the one session where I quite happily drop it every week. So I need to make sure that I've
That's
got that still
dedication.
programmed in. Yeah, it makes a
That's
massive
real dedication.
difference.
Yeah.
And
Because I used to do core work and squats, and I've shelved it. I didn't
yeah,
look
yeah,
alternatives. So
yeah.
you're obviously very
You
committed.
always
Yeah.
tell yourself that you're going to do something, and then you're like, oh, I'll just watch Emmerdale. Oh, now Coronation Street's on. Oh, now some rubbish about a train journey around Britain's on,
Yeah,
And then
it's easier to
it gets
sit
to
down.
10 o'clock, and you're like, oh, it's bedtime now.
Yeah,
And it's like what we were just saying, it's so easy to miss it. And then once you miss one, you're like, well, I didn't do Tuesdays, so what's the point of doing Thursdays? And yeah, but in terms of training, I do majority of the training by myself anyway, so it hasn't really affected us in that instance. I maybe do like, if I'm lucky, one session with somebody else in normal
yeah,
circumstances. And yeah, I just changed all my focus um, at the beginning of the first lockdown. So I'd just literally come back from Tokyo to run the Tokyo Marathon. It's like, it's crazy looking back at it now. Like this time
yeah,
last year, I flew to Tokyo to run a marathon.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then,
It's
3 weeks
fun.
later, we
Yeah,
went into
I
lockdown.
remember that. Yeah, you went there
Uh,
in February, and
like when I was there,
wow,
Tokyo
a
itself
year.
went into lockdown on the Monday, and here's me wandering about going, "Oh, can I go and see this?" They're like, "No, you're in lockdown."
Looking back,
So
you have to kind of laugh because I was training for London, and when it
yeah,
got cancelled, um, I have to laugh. So the night before, I think I'd done a 15-mile run in the dark, and it had torrential rain. I got in and they'd announced it on the news, the London Marathon's off. See, I've been tracking it on the internet thinking, is it going to
yeah.
happen? Is it not? I thought, well, that's it then. Pie, chips and gravy and a few pints. I just went mad for a week.
Yeah.
And
But
then I thought,
that's
I'm
actually
going
what
to
I was
regret
telling
this
people
because
to
we're going to be
do.
running soon. Things are going to be
Yeah.
back to normal in May. I think things will,
Uh,
and I always thought, and I think the public did, we thought things would be back to normal
yeah. They thought it would
two,
be
three
that
months. So
four,
I'll
six
keep
week
training.
lockdown and that'll be it. Be fine.
Yeah.
But
And we were
when
so
like
wrong.
the London and that cancelled, I had a lot of people saying to me like, I've lost my mojo, or I'm really
Yeah.
upset and everything. I'm like, well, you know what? Either taper like you were going to and go and run it virtual and do a time trial so that you're getting something from that training, or just act like you've just done your marathon today and you're now going to have that break so that you can get over like the disappointment and everything, but also to recover because you've done pretty much all your marathon training to that point.
Yeah. Did, yeah.
I was like, don't just try and carry on doing what you've been doing for the last 3 months. Otherwise, you're going to come a cropper. And if it does go ahead in October, you're going to be knackered by the time you get there. But some people, they were like spitting the dummy out and they were never ever running again. And you're like, well, it's one race, it's going to go ahead at some point.
Yeah.
There's going to be other races. The world hasn't ended yet. But yeah,
I mean, it's hard if you've prepared. So
yeah,
I'm training now with a plan of hopefully doing a marathon in autumn. My heart's kind of set on New York, so
yeah,
I'm kind of working towards that in November. But I got in touch with the guy on the organisation team, and he's like, sounds to me 70-30. It's not going to be open for international
yeah.
athletes. So I'm like, well,
Well, I'm
where
the
do I go?
same. I was looking at Chicago this year and I was like, well,
October.
yes, they've said it's going ahead, but will they allow international kind of, athletes in there? And even if they do I really want to travel to Chicago kind of this year? Or do I want to leave it another year where,
And
hopefully things are a bit safer?
it's hard because at your level, um, you're obviously committed, so you can't really do it half-hearted. I mean, you retire,
Yeah.
but you say, I can see you're not. As a masters athlete, you will tell that line, and you will give it your all because you always have done. I'll do the same. I'll still want to do the best that I can, but you
Yeah.
can't really do that half-hearted. So you don't be getting into July and still think, is it
Yeah.
happening? Is it not? Where do I stand? Especially when you're getting up and you're doing, runs in the morning and you're doing your strength training, your core work,
Yeah.
your long run on a Sunday. It's a lot. It's a lot of commitment, and
It is, yeah.
I think running as well. You mentioned about football, the World Cup being big, but running it, I think people underestimate the discipline that you have to have and the dedication that goes into it. And I think the Olympic Games, in my mind, and I'm biased, it's probably bigger than the World Cup because obviously there's more people who take part in running events globally. It's a truly global sport. Football is as well, but there's 38,000 do them in the marathon. It's probably more than that now. And most of North America, most people will go to those runs and try them. They'll have their own versions of like 5Ks, part of what we have here, etc. It's massive, and anyone can compete at any level. And it's the only sport where, I mean, you've reached the pinnacle, but if you're not an elite runner, you still line up and do that event with Eliud Kipchoge if you do the marathon.
Yeah, that's what I always say about Great North Run. What other sport can somebody, my mum stand on the start line with Mo Farah. Okay, she's not going to be the shortest shoulder. She's going to be like half a mile down the carriageway, but they're on the same start line, running the same race. You can't just rock up at Wembley and, play against Ronaldo. That's not going to happen. But you can rock up and, in theory, race Mo Farah.
Yeah, give them a go. Yeah. Well, Ali, really appreciate your time this evening. Thank you for coming on our show.
No worries.
Keep in touch. We've really had some fantastic answers to questions. It's been great hearing about your career, and we'll definitely have you back at some time in the future. So thank you for joining us.
No worries. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot. Take care, Cheers. Ali. And hope Chicago comes off.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's been great talking to Ali. If you have got any questions that you want to ask us, feel free to contact us, support@fitwins.co.uk. Hopefully you've got a lot of motivation from the interview that we've had with Ali. I certainly have. Hopefully you're feeling motivated despite the harsh winter conditions that you may be facing. I definitely am getting up in the morning and running in snow and ice. If you're going for that medal this February, remember we have distance ribbons for 50 miles, 25, 75, 100, 125. Go up in 25 mile intervals up to 200 miles. So hopefully that'll keep you motivated, keep making those moves on the leaderboard. And remember, we will be doing a draw next month for a £100 shop voucher. And you might be one of those winners. So thank you for listening to our show here at Fitwins. Get fit and be a winner. I'm signing out. Goodbye.